Hey, everybody. Thank you for coming, even though I think I'm listening. Praise your grade. Oh, nice callback, Harmonic Man. Hug Dave. Yeah, okay, so, no, let's just get to it. I am reviewing, Erin Lewis's book, Expose Yourself. Wait, there's her name, and the subtitle, which is a little long, but I have a theory. How to take risks, question everything, and find yourself. Humor and insights from my life as a stripper. So this is absolutely autobiographical. It has kind of the feel of a memoir, but also the feel of a kind of a self-help book. And it there's a really nice, incredibly well written through line of sort of scenes from, I almost said Italian restaurant because too many Billy Joel songs in my head, but from scenes from various strip clubs and situations. And what Erin does brilliantly, just to give you a broad overview before we get into specifics, is she takes you on this journey of her own developing skepticism, right? Starting at one point when she's um, 6 years old. There's an interesting thing with a babysitter, and not a gross thing or anything like that. She's fine, but yeah, just an interesting moment with babysitter, and then later on, just lessons learned kind of the hard way sometimes. But hey, we've all we've all learned lessons the hard way. Um, the biggest initial criticism that I had about the book was that sometimes um, she'll say she'll say studies have shown, but she doesn't cite the study on the page. But then when I got to the end of the book, I discovered a whole annotated bibliography at the end. So she does give us the information that we need there at the end. We want to if we want to check any of her sources. All right, so let's get into it. And some of these are things I just want to read. Like there's one of Daryl Ray's books is in here, Sex and God: How Religion Distorts Sexuality. Um, let's see, The Demon Haunted World, Carl Sagan and Anne Druin. Yeah, The Skeptic's Guide to the Universe. These are great. And then in addition, at the very end, she has a bibliography, books by yours truly, and that's Dirty Money, Memoirs of a Stripper, and Think You Want to Be a Stripper? And I have both. I have those books as well because she very kindly sent them to me. So I need to read them too. Hey, Brainbug. Hey, Never Again. All right. Oh yeah, this is Wine and Reason. I'm Julie. Hey. Uh, it is afternoon my time. Thank you all for being here, especially since I'm not entirely certain I scheduled this for the right date. I think I might have accidentally put yesterday's date on it, so I'm really glad y'all are here. I have a small glass of Cabernet, and now I'm gonna talk to you more in depth about a book by a hot redhead who is incredibly intelligent and who I very much respect. And I normally wouldn't mention her looks, but it's okay. Like in the context of, I think it's okay anyway. Tell me if it's not. But yeah, Erin's beautiful. She knows it. And in fact, one of the great things that she discusses in the book is how she found nudity empowering. Okay, so let's see. Initially, here we go. In one of the early chapters, she captures sort of the flaw of it's kind of like the problem of evil that she's discussing, but it's also what religious people say to the problem of evil, which is it's all in God's plan, right? And we've all heard that and probably been really, really annoyed. Mark Caesar, you can kindle. I choose not to. I read on a screen all day most days. I like to have actual paper to read. It's a nice break for my eyes. Hi. I'm glad you're here, though. I'm very glad you're here. Okay, anyway. And this is when she's discussing the it's all in God's plan, and how people, those of us who are godless heathens, tend to react to that. She mentions this Christian outreach group that goes to all the clubs in town and tells girls they can be loved and respected. As if you're, this is a quote, as if you're stripping because nobody loves or respects you. And uh, Erin points out that she thinks it's disrespectful to tell people how they feel, and so do I. Um, in fact, the last time someone tried to solicit money from me on behalf of their Christian organization, I said, they asked me if I'd been saved by Jesus Christ, and I said, no, I'm an atheist. And they said, oh, well, he loves you. And I'm like, I don't consent to that. So I was right there with her in this moment of being like, don't tell me shit you can't possibly know. Don't tell me. And so when it comes to people, you know, trying to tell you how you feel, or that, no, you really do believe in God, you just somehow divine hiddenness is you hiding from God instead of the other way around. I don't know. None of those arguments make any sense to me. So as an illustration of the whole God's plan thing, she talks about how, or she writes rather, about how her husband has nearly died at least 7 times since they met. They've been married for over 20 years. They're still together. They have a kid. Um, and so, you know, someone might argue that maybe God was trying to, you know, tell him something, or, you know, expect to be worshipped, or, you know, thank you for saving my life, what have you. But stubbornly, quote, stubbornly, he remains an agnostic atheist. Not once in all those times did he think there was a divine intervention. Each mishap can be logically explained using earthly information. And I think that's important, because it's, you know, you want to work the God's plan thing as a means of comfort. Tell that to somebody whose kid is in the cancer ward at St. Jude. Just give it a shot, see if you get punched in the face or not. Okay. So let's see. Sorry, I'm losing my thread, but yeah. So again, the book is a back and forth of like these life experiences and also learning to be skeptical. Sorry. And so she kind of starts out, you know, where she is now, and then goes back and forward and all over the place. It's great. In chapter 7, she does a really hilarious retelling of the Garden of Eden story. It starts out, once upon a time, actually the first time ever, there was a lush and beautiful garden. This garden and the entire world were created by a powerful being. This being, having created and designed everything in the world and the universe beyond, knows everything, past, present, and future. The only being in existence, we'll call him Jim, was lonely. Jim decided he would make another being just like him to keep him company and to care for this paradise he had made. He gathered up a handful of dirt and made a man we'll call Brad. So there's and Jim comes back in the story. He's just this recurring, you know, character without having to say Yahweh, God, or, you know, Lord Ganesh or whomever. But yeah, we all know who she's talking about. And it lays out the issues with that particular expulsion from paradise narrative that we all have, right? You know, why is God the only one lying in that story? Why is the snake the only one telling the truth? The serpent, rather. quote, Jim, brackets, concocted a plan to make sure that the lives he created would have a reason to fear and obey him. All his creations would now suffer during their earthly lives, but if they choose to love and obey him, he will make sure they get to go to paradise when they die. Yay! So this life may suck, but it's okay. It'll all be better in heaven. And she goes beautifully. Like, this is such a beautiful transition. As a composition teacher, I would have, like, this is, definitely an A here. But and then wraps up the afterlife, describing hell. Thanks a lot, Jim, quote, for that. And then immediately in the next paragraph defines malignant narcissism, which I think is quite apropos. Hey, Wild Eden. Yeah, so, oh, and Godless Sewing, I think I saw you come in. So we go from the description of Jim and creating this and wanting everyone to love and obey him, and if they don't, if they transgress once, they get punished punished? That's not a word. Nope. Punished eternally. And then, malignant narcissism is a psychological syndrome which includes an extreme mix of self-absorbent antisocial behavior and sadism. Yep. And having known at least one malignant narcissist, not going to name any names, in my lifetime, yeah, that describes it perfectly. And another great thing about this book is the humor and the wit that's in it. There are so many lines that are clever. Erin writes about a lot of heavy topics. The problem of evil. Why, should we thank Jim for the strip club? A lot of existential things and ethics, and how do you raise a child ethically without religion, and what's wrong with raising children in religion? How is that damaging? And tackling a lot of heavy, and while at the same time trying to dispel a lot of stereotypes about strippers. And a lot of us, myself included, were either raised with, or it just came out of our culture that stripping was something a woman did if she had no other option, right? Like prostitution in that sense. And there's a reason I didn't say sex work there, and it's just because that's the stereotype, right? Sex work is real work, stripping is real work, and if you're good at it, you can make a damn good living at it. There are dangers, yeah, and she points those out. She talks about alcoholism and drug use, and why it's not a good idea to do those things at work, or if you have to do those things in order to be a stripper. Hey, Dr. Osiris, then you shouldn't be a stripper. You're not, like, if you have to get messed up to do it, you shouldn't do it. And so there's a lot of good, solid advice. And real information about what it's like to work in a strip club. But so we get that. Again, that's the narrative that's sort of woven in around everything else. And in these early chapters, she's dealing a lot with Christianity in particular, and the Christian worldview. And there's and when I said that what's one of the things that's great about this book is how witty it is, because it deals with such weighty topics. You don't, this is a really fun, hey, Godless Granny, this isn't a depressing read at all. It's really fun to read. Like, at one point she says, she writes, quote, considering the setup perpetrated on poor Brad, Angelina, and the snake, I think it's safe to call Jim a malignant narcissist. In other words, he's kind of a fucking asshole. And all humankind will now pay for it forever. which is just fantastically put, and good hyperbole. Okay, and then there's a great moment, and she gives us a lot of insights into her personal life. Hey, Robert X, which are fun as well. Hey, Sir Little Wolf. And she didn't have to do that, but it's nice that she did. It kind of rounds out the picture. So thank you for sharing those personal moments with us. Religion says sex is shameful. That's another quote from the book. We're supposed to be embarrassed by nudity. We're supposed to be embarrassed about sex. And she points out the double standard that women in particular, there's that purity culture element that women in particular need to be, I don't know what, keep, you know what, I'm just going to quote her again. I'm sorry. Because it's women in particular are supposed to keep their sexuality on the down low, right? Like it's if we're open about it, we get called really awful things. Yeah. I remember saying something in a graduate school class. Graduate school, I was married. Half the students were married. Some of them had kids. I mean, we were all well adult, right? And I said something about one of the texts we were studying, and it was sort of like in my experience, blank. I can't remember what I said. I don't know, make up something about sexuality in your heads, and just, that's fine. I don't care. And the professor started to laugh. He was an older gentleman. He started to laugh, and he said, well, that means you either weren't a virgin when you got married, and then I laughed, like locked eyes with him, and I laughed, and I was like, oh no, I test drive it before I buy it. And then the whole class laughed, and he started to blush. So yeah, don't put your shame on me, mother person. I'm not taking it. Nope. You can have your hang-ups, they aren't mine. Okay, so she points out that if she hadn't gone into this career at 18 as a stripper, which she knowingly chose, hey Purple, she wouldn't have met her husband. They wouldn't have the unique child that they have. And quote, I wouldn't be listening to the unique marvel that is our son blasting Iron Maiden from his puberty cave, which is just one of the best I'm sorry, I can't find the right word. I've been reading somebody else's words for a while. That's one of the loveliest images of a teenager I've ever read. It's really good. Okay, but it was good. I liked it. Is not a literary critique. So I'm gonna try and I'm gonna try and be critical. It's hard when you read it's hard for me. It always has been, actually. It's why I got a master's of fine arts instead of a master's in lit crit, because if I love something, it's difficult for me to criticize it, and I have to really dig to find something that I can say, okay, well, this could have been better. And so on that note, hey, Mom Mavis. On that note, I will say that reading this book, which so much fun, and again, clearly I liked it a lot. But one thing that did stand out to me is something that I could say, will get better, and it's just because it's the nature of it. This was Erin's third book. She's written more than that now, and she's writing fiction now, which I can't wait to read. I'm very excited for that. But her writing in this book is better than her writing in her first two books, but you can still tell this is someone who is still kind of new, still kind of a new, at least writing for publication writer, because there are just those hiccups that happen. I mean, they're practically typos, but there are moments where and they're rare. It's like three, maybe four in the whole book, where there were just like little mistakes, like where a word was left out of a sentence, or there was a sentence fragment that wasn't meant to be a fragment, like it wasn't an artful fragment. It just, um, just ended up that way. So just a couple of things like that as a former English teacher may kind of took me out of the moment for a moment. But that is my biggest criticism of the book on a whole, in terms of what could be better. So there's this amazing, again, she starts talking about, on page 53, there's a secondary, like a section title, ignorance is not always bliss. And yeah, and she starts out with kind of a joke about, not a joke, but a weird thing in nature that we all kind of wish we didn't know, but those of us who do, like once you know that, you can't not know it. So yeah, didn't need to know that, didn't want to know it. I'm not gonna tell you what it is. I want you to buy this book and read it. But usually the more you know, the better off you are. And as a species, we are incredibly curious. And she goes, and she talks about the scientific method of asking questions and learning through observation, and how that works. And, the fact that if we weren't a curious species, we might not still be here, and we certainly wouldn't have the quality of life that we have now. Oh no, I'm sorry. Real. I'm about to tie this to something later in the book, but yeah, I know. I said I'm done on a stream the other night, and immediately heard my mother's voice saying, "Meat gets done, people get finished." I was like, yeah, she's still in there. Okay, so two things. Yeah, we're a curious species, but at the same time, if you jump to page 98, where she's talking about how self-deception, how we can accidentally, deceive ourselves into seeing or thinking we're seeing supernatural things, or thinking we're seeing anything, and it's just not there. That's part of the fight or flight response, right? You walk into a dark room, you see a shadow that looks vaguely like a person, and you wait, because the fight or flight response in your brain is going, that might be a tiger, right? And if our ancestors hadn't run away when they heard a rustling in the bushes near them, knowing that might be the wind, might be something that wants to eat me, if they hadn't run away, we likely our species wouldn't have survived this long. But it is good that we're curious. And here she hit on something way back on page 55 that hit me where I live, or at least in my wallet, for way too long. I worked at a health food store, I'm not going to say which one, right after college, and I got really into homeopathic medicine because I didn't have health insurance at the time, and this was stuff that was supposed to be all natural, right? And it was. I mean, water pill, sure, it's all natural. A water pill with a millionth of a millionth of a millionth of a drop of garlic in it, however that works. It doesn't work. That's how that works. It doesn't. It's not a thing. Water doesn't have memory, and it's had way more poo in it than garlic. So, but she talks about being into homeopathy. And this starts a recurring theme in the book, where she'll give a personal example of, here's something I used to think. Here's what happened when I applied skepticism to it. And there are really good examples of that all throughout the book, and they're narratively written, and really good. But the homeopathy one got to me because I did the exact same thing. So she's describing buying too much stuff that she couldn't afford and thinking she was making great choices at the time, right? Yeah. Yeah. We're not always right, you know? And, and then, this is the great part, is that she became so convinced that homeopathy was the way to go in terms of medicine. And if this is happening when I think it was happening, there was also a lot of social stuff about this too, because in the late 80s and all through the 90s, there was a big push toward don't put chemicals in your body. Well, guess what? Everything is chemicals, literally everything. And don't use prescription drugs. Those are they're bad. They're bad for you. Why is that? We can't say why. They just are. They're bad. You should use natural stuff. Well, high fructose corn syrup is natural. It's not good for you either. But yeah, yeah, it was a big thing at the time, and it was for Erin as well. And she got so into it that she decided to do a school research paper on it, because apparently they were allowed to pick their topics, which my high school did that too. And when she researched it and had to put and read peer-reviewed studies about homeopathy, her paper certainly ended up having a completely opposite thesis statement, I imagine, than it did at the beginning. It ended up being a paper against homeopathy. And on top of that, she was angry. And, well, actually, she doesn't say she was angry. So I'm sorry. I just put words in your mouth, Erin. I apologize. I was angry. That was me. That was my response. I was pissed off because I was a grad student, and I was poor and I did not need my hard-earned money wasted on BS. And when I found out just how much bullshit there was in homeopathy, I was angry. But I got over it. And like Erin, I learned a valuable lesson. Oh, and she got an A on the paper, so well done there. So a little spoiler for you. I'm trying really hard. I really want to review this book thoroughly without telling you sometimes, or I'm sorry, without telling you everything, because I don't want to spoil it for you. So you might notice there, well, anyway, okay. So yeah, it's, if you didn't know, now you know. Homeopathy is all garbage, and look it up for yourself if you need to, like Erin did, and like I did after Tim mentioned it being garbage, and I was like, what? And let me just say, Erin, I was much older than you were. I'm older than you are anyway, I think, but I was much older than you were before I found out that homeopathy was complete bullshit. So good on you. Well done. Yeah. Okay. So, another fantastic thing about this book is how honest and vulnerable and funny. I know I keep saying funny, but it really is. But how honest and vulnerable she can be. Yes, do that, Mark. Hey, Sam. Okay, so for example, chapter 8 is entitled "Let Your Genitals Be Your Guide," which is both funny and awesome. And she talks about, you know, she, and then she gives an example of an experience in buying some clothing for work, some lingerie and some shoes, but she wasn't able to try them on because this was pre-shopping on the internet. I mean, the internet existed, but it was still very expensive, and it was early. It was early. So she had a catalog for Fredericks of Hollywood, and if any of you remember that place, you are at least as old as I am. Yeah, so and this is discovering, just a small moment of discovery of how things may look a certain way in a catalog and not be that way when you actually get them. This is still true. And the same is true for websites. I don't buy clothing on websites anymore unless it's just a t-shirt. I'm going to buy it big anyway. If it's anything that's going to be fitting to me, I don't buy it unless they have a measurements chart. And then because I have Taylor's tape measure, and I can take my measurements. So yeah. Yeah, God, Granny remembers. Yeah, it was no Victoria's Secret, but it was cheaper. I remember that. But I also remember going in there as a very young woman, like a teenager, and being very embarrassed. Like my friends always wanted to go in there, and I was like, oh God, do we have to? I don't want to look at crotchless underwear. But I had a lot of hangups. Okay, so back to Erin Louis and her book, Expose Yourself, because this is not about me. The subtitle of chapter 8, Let Your Genitals Be Your Guide, is Be True to Yourself, which is an awesome thing. And the whole chapter is about that. And let's see. Here we go. And it's also where in this chapter, where she talks about marriage and about and about the damaging effects of the notion of soulmates. And yeah, this one, hey Ox, this one hit me too, because I absolutely believed in soulmates for way too long, into my 20s. Yeah, maybe even a bit longer than that. Yeah, maybe even after 30 too, because I got married at 23 and then divorced at 33. So yeah, it was basically, I stopped believing in soulmates after my first marriage fell apart. But it's a weird idea, and it's also it's a way to just limit your options, and also make you think that you have to put up with, whatever it was, right? And certainly if you were raised in a religious environment where you were raised to believe in abstinence before marriage, which that didn't work out for me, the abstinence part. And I'm actually grateful for that. But the whole, you can end up, locked in a situation that you've also invited God into, right? And Lewis refers to this in her book. Oh, look at me going all teacher again, calling her by her last name. The rule is, unless you know the author personally, you use their full name or just their last name in literary criticism. But I actually do know Erin Louis. I've talked to her online, face to face, like I'm talking to you guys right now, and she knows I'm doing this today. And so yeah, so we're all good. And okay, so anyway, so Erin describes again a moment from a strip club where she talks about a regular who was raised very religious, and he and his wife were both, and I'm not saying this doesn't always work out. I mean, my parents were both virgins when they got married. Very normal for their generation, and certainly for a young Catholic couple. And if the times their headboard woke me up hitting their bedroom wall in high school is any precursor, or no, I'm sorry, is any observation with merit, yeah, their sex life was fine. It was absolutely fine. But that doesn't happen for everyone. And she had a regular who'd been raised, yeah, the unholy threesome, good times. Exactly. It's like, it's basically, she calls it a ghostly menage a trois, because there's you, your spouse, and God, and you're all in the marriage. And if divorce is forbidden and you can't go be happy, you can end up being very unhappily married. And that's a special kind of hell. Anybody in here, if you've ever been unhappily married, you know what I'm talking about. It's it's great. It can be great if it's great, but if it's not, oof, there's a reason the divorce rate is so high. Uh, at the end of describing this poor young man's situation, she says, quote, their marriage was more cursed than blessed. Um, and and then she said the idea of a soulmate can have the same consequences. And I went, yes, it can, because by the time I met my husband, I was no longer a Christian, but I was into all kinds of woo. I was a neo-pagan. I was, like I said, into homeopathy, and I was very much like a new age hippie. I was into all of that stuff. And yeah, I thought there was, one person out there for me somewhere, which is a weird thing for somebody who's pansexual to think, because that's like cutting yourself off from a lot of experiences that would be completely natural for me to want to have. But I think some of that was the Catholic indoctrination sticking. So yeah, it's interesting. Here's what I wanted to quote from this part. Okay. Quote, I believe that you need to be connected sexually, intellectually, and emotionally. Now, obviously, if you're ace, you don't, like there are ace people who are asexual but not aromantic. They're, or what have you. So that's but yeah, I for a for a lot of folks, it's sexually, intellectually, and emotionally in that order. To be happy with someone in the long term, you need to be connected in all those ways. The most important ingredient to make these connections is to communicate. To be able to effectively communicate your sexual desires, you have to know what they are. And to do that, you need experience. Yeah, so I have actually, I'm sure, I really hope this is something that never gets back to my you know what? I'm just going to say this. Yeah, I don't agree with abstinence before marriage. I really don't. I think it's a bad idea. Be safe, be careful. Don't make sure you use protection against STIs. Make sure that you are not getting anyone pregnant unless that's the goal of the situation. But definitely don't get married without, well, that's what I think anyway. Y'all have to do what's right for you. Okay. Let's see what next. Oh yeah, and respect. There's an excellent paragraph that I'm not going to read the whole paragraph, but essentially about respect and how if your partner doesn't respect you, that's a deal breaker. You should walk away, and that's absolutely true. Um, and then also she makes an trust and communication, again, absolutely essential. And she of course makes the points like, and also just in case, like every act should be consensual as well, which I hope I've made clear by now, but she restates it towards the end. Oh, harmonica man. All right. So and there's stuff about, that I'm not going to read to you because it's fun and it's making me blush a little bit. So again, buy the book. You can read it yourself. And then there's also there's a sad vignette in here as well, where she yeah, I'm not gonna talk about that one either. But it's important to know yourself and accept yourself first. right? And the whole time I was reading this chapter, the good parts and the funny parts and the sad parts, I just kept thinking about, the line from Hamlet that I have tattooed on me, like, this above all to thine own self be true, and it must follow as the night the day, thou canst not then be false to any man, right? And hey, Lone Wanderer, oh, I'm glad you're here. Oh, how'd it go? Oh, DM me. Tell me how it went. Okay, sorry. So anyway, all right. So there, I'm trying not to. I don't want to give everything away because it's a great book and I want y'all to read it. So she talks about the difference between meditation and prayer, and then there's some great stuff like who's listening, when you're praying, and she does this great thing where she's tells you this experience she had where she was giving a lap dance, and she really 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 needed to pee, and there wasn't, and so she was waiting for the song to be over and silently praying to the DJ, like, just stop the song so I can go stop. And then right at when he stopped the song, she's like, oh, thank God. And she starts to leave, or thank the DJ, and she starts to leave, and the guy's like, oh, one more dance, please. And she's like, all right. Because I mean, that is money. Like, private dances are like, that's serious cash. So it's hard to say no to that, but it's also hard to say no to your, own immediate physical needs as well, especially the necessary ones. So yeah, there's that. And she does bring up the paradoxical thing about praying, which is, if God knows everything, past, present, and future, assuming there is one and assuming he's omniscient, why would you ask God to change his mind? Like, isn't that kind of going against God's plan? And then, where God's plan comes back again, because yeah, so Calvinism a little bit in there. And but if you read not so much the Bible, because in the Bible God's mind can be changed. Moses changes his mind, talks basically. I think it was Moses. Anyway, there are a couple of times when God is argued into a compromise, which is great. It's something I love about the Old Testament, is God kind of starts out as this floating lamp, and then later is like smoke above a mountain, and then later is just in the box in the temple, and then at some points he has a whole body, and it's a body that wrestles someone and loses, and it's a body that sits down and has dinner with someone on the side of the road. It's fascinating to watch the evolution of evolutions of poor, probably a poor word choice, or a really ironic one, depending on how you want to look at it, of this God in the Bible. But the way that Christians of today view their God is that oh no, he's the absolute omniscient, king of the universe, created everything, right? So under that idea, yeah, why would intercessory prayer even be allowed? Which is an interesting thought. And yeah, I mean, and so she asks a lot of questions about that are fascinating, and then goes through the praying to the DJ example, and said that praying to the DJ worked about 50% of the time, which reminded me of the old George Carlin joke about praying to Joe Pesci. Okay, so finding your own heaven, life as if now is all you get. All right, so so she gives different examples of situations in her life and in other people's lives that are like finding little pieces of heaven. And yeah. Oh, hi, Microraptor. Hi, Johan. Hey. Oh my gosh, you guys. I have to oh, sorry. I'm gonna really quick break since I just got distracted anyway. I have to thank my patrons, but and I did not have time, but I got a new patron yesterday, and it is none other than the Lavender Lady. So I am beyond grateful to her and to all of you, because this job hunting thing is rough right now, and it's just, I'm gonna keep plugging away at it, and we'll see what happens. But I'm so grateful to all of you. Okay, so let me just fix this thing right here. This is riveting. I know. I'm so sorry. All right, I swear I meant to do this earlier, but Junk Shop had an appointment, a medical appointment over the computer. Their tooth is getting treated. It's okay, and yeah, so I didn't do this one. I should have. So let me put that banner up. All right. So, deepest thanks to my patrons, The Lone Wanderer, A Bit of Tea and Danish, Captain Kimothy, Mark Caesar, Santi the Sane, Microraptor, Ox, Godless Granny, and Lavender Lady. Thank you all so much. You are buying me groceries, so thank you. All right. There's not that there's any danger of starving around my house. Don't worry. I make a lot of food. Okay. Yes. So what's the point? Okay. Yeah, the point in this chapter essentially is something that a lot of people coming out of religion, or at least certainly I know I felt this, when I realized that I was an atheist and that there wouldn't be, and that I no longer thought that there would be any kind of afterlife, and certainly not reincarnation and stuff like that. I realized, shit, I've got to do things. I need to get things done. I need to, I mean, if this is it, I want to do everything I can. And yeah, so it's a whole thing. So, and she kind of illustrates some of this with also talking about how, oh, I'm sorry, nope. Now we're talking about biases. Sorry. So chapter 12 is all about confirming your bias and how to develop a strong self-awareness. And this is super important. If any of you ever watched The Office, and Michael, the Steve Carell's character, had no self-awareness whatsoever, never understood how uncomfortable he made people. Oh, thank you for subscribing, Johan. Thank you. Yeah, never, and all of that, and would do just such inappropriate things. There's a certain world leader who springs to mind. I mean, there are just some people that just don't seem to have good self-awareness, and that can mess you up, because it can make you blind to your own biases. And we all have biases, right? We all do. Hey, Erin Louis, you're in the chat. Oh my gosh. Oh, cool. Oh, nice. Not sure how this works. I think you'll be fine. It's just at some point you won't be able to type in the chat anymore, and then the video will finish. That's been my experience. So thank you for coming. I'm looking at your book, which is awesome. Okay, so we're checking out confirming biases, and one of the things, again, what I love about this book is we get specific information. So Erin's going to go through and she's going to define specific types of biases, and that was really cool. Like I used to teach logical fallacies, but I didn't. There were a couple of types of bias that I had not heard those terms before, so I was really excited. So I learned things, and that always makes me happy. But she also does the storyteller part, which I think is so important for a lot of us, because if this were just your like average self-help book, it might have like lists and maybe even little things, little workbook things for you to do or what have you. But a lot of it would be difficult for it to stick in your mind because and a lot of that has to do with how human beings learn. And one way that we learn, for good or ill, is through storytelling. And so she gives us this great, this really neat and well-written narrative of when she was 6 and in the 80s, and her parents left her with an unfamiliar babysitter. And she was just absolutely convinced that this woman was a witch. She didn't understand why her parents would leave her with this person. And she didn't understand why all the other kids there weren't, as she was like the lady was running like a small daycare out of her home. And she didn't understand why the other kids there weren't as upset as she was. And it was, it's funny and it's sad and there's this moment of like just deep recognition, at least for me, where that being, because this happened a lot in the 80s. I mean, we all got told never talk to strangers, right? But it was kind of this mixed message because our parents had all grown up in the 50s and 60s or 70s, depending on, no, not 70s, 50s and 60s. And it was just, it was kind of a different world, but not. There was some paranoia, but you also could be left for hours and hours and hours absolutely on your own, or as long as you were like with other children. Like no one really thought to question that, and nothing terrible happens. The woman did not turn out to be a witch. The house was not made of gingerbread, and that's me, not Erin. But she just turned out to be a really good babysitter. And so I don't want to again, I don't want to spoil it for you, but what's great is this is an illustration of self-deception. 6-year-old Erin Louis was convinced that Mrs. C was a witch, and then after a nap and a sandwich, like after a nap and a snack, she was fine with her. And it's one of those moments where you realize that it's a great memory for one thing, and it's very detailed because you like need to, like, we all need to recognize how easy it is for us to deceive ourselves, and how easy it is, frankly, to trust your brain too much. And that sounds weird, I know. I remember this part resonated with me as well. On page 99, she writes, it might seem like our brains are just one big mess of anxieties, biases, and misunderstandings, because that's exactly what they are. Sorry. Our perception of the reality we exist in gets filtered through our very imperfect brains. And so those same vagal nerve and fight or flight responses that keep us safe also can make us see things that aren't there. They can also make us misjudge a situation terribly, and that's why I was trying to explain to Junk Shop this weird experience that I had that I'm like, I don't think it was supernatural now, but I did at the time, and I still don't have an explanation for it, and that really bothers me. I don't like not having an explanation for it. And they looked at me and they were like, "Oh, you still trust your brain?" And I was like, "What?" I was a little insulted. I was like, "What do you mean, spouse? Like, what are you talking about?" And they were like, "No, I'm not trying to be mean. It's just like we all see shit that we can't explain, and it's just your brain. You said it was nighttime, and you were outside, and I was like, yeah, and it was dark where you saw it. I was like, yeah, and there it is. That's it. That's just your brain." So the I'm trying not to read the chat. I'm trying to stay really focused today on this. Okay, so So as Erin rightly puts it, quote, we are pretty much doomed to perceive reality in a way that is not correct. That's on page 99. And she's right. But once you know that, and once you're aware of it, then you can take, more skeptical steps, and you can be, and you can develop more self-awareness and avoid self-deception better, right? So it's just incredibly well laid out. I love the organization of the book. Okay, so so one of the things that our brains are doing, they're trying to process information quickly, so that to make sure we're acting, that we're not running into danger, right? That we're reacting in the right way, fight or flight, right? But let's see. Hang on, no, here we go. So cognitive biases and logical fallacies. So, and again, there's another vignette about a bouncer that illustrates that point very well. I'm going to leave that. I don't want to spoil the whole book for you, but so cognitive bias and logical fallacies, excuse me. This is where, like, I knew cognitive bias was a thing, and I knew that confirmation bias was one of them, but I didn't know, oh my gosh, there are a bunch more, and I didn't know that. And so thank you, Erin. So there's and there are anchoring biases. An anchoring bias is it's where you take the first piece of information, and you stop looking for more because you've already assessed the situation, right? And that one struck me as yeah. Hang on. Okay, so an anchoring bias, it can be connected to the logical fallacy from authority, which, or it actually better stated, it should be fallacy should be named from false authority, really, because if I'm not going to ask a podiatrist to look at my teeth, right? That's not, they're an expert in feet, not teeth. So you can appeal to authority. It's okay. Just make sure it's the right one. All right, but this could be an example. Like if my mom, this is funny because my mom has dementia, and even before that, she would tell stories about her family that weren't actually true. But if I want any information about any of my extended family, and I just ask my mom, and she tells me, and I just believe her. And that's an anchoring bias, because what I should do is remember all those times that after spending an evening with my mom and her sisters, my mom would go to bed, and then I would stay up with my aunts, and they would tell me everything that did not happen that my mom had said that happened, or how it was wrong. And this happens too, just with our memories. Our memories are crap, right? So you can have 5 people witness the same event, and you're going to get 5 different stories. So, okay, all right. So yeah, let me just get through the other ones. So that's anchoring bias. There's self-serving bias, right? That's pretty self-explanatory, I think. Let's see. And I'm sorry, right. So the reason we want to okay, so those are a couple of examples. And developing a strong sense of self-awareness is the best way to get past our cognitive biases and have a clearer view of the things around us. So again, it's all about trying to interpret reality as it actually is, and not as we would have it be, or not as our perceptions might be telling us they are. Hang on. Dr. Osiris says, if your memories are crap, that means the word is yet to be invented to describe how ridiculous mine is. Okay, fair. All right. So you have to have, okay, yeah. So basically have skepticism towards your own perceptions, because if you don't, you won't overcome irrational biases, and that leads to logical fallacies, and flawed blah 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 blah, and flawed logic can lead to all types of self-deception. Was the point of that chapter, but it's really well written. All right. I don't know why I'm so nervous today. Okay, here we go. Oh, yes. All right. And then she gets into superstitions. These are amazing. And starts with, just some funny ones, like, and silly ones, stuff that we used to do, like if you ever avoided stepping on cracks when you were a kid or something. But the thing, and there's stuff that I still do, like I was taught to always cross myself if I passed a church while driving, a Catholic church, not the other ones. Religion is so exclusory. I don't like it. There were other moments, like if someone mentioned something sad, or mentioned someone who had passed away, or there's a lot of reasons to cross yourself when you're Catholic, and it becomes this learned behavior that just does not want to go away. I have done it since I've become an atheist. I have crossed myself, I think, at least twice. And I wasn't a practicing Catholic for like 20 years before that, but that's how ingrained that behavior was. And it's a type of magical thinking, is what it is. And so, like, Catholics will cross themselves to protect themselves. Erin doesn't say any of this in her book. I'm just saying, here's an example, because I don't want to just read. I actually kind of would love to just read the whole thing, but that would be bad. I'm not doing that. Go get it on Audible or whatever. Okay, so so superstitions are magical thinking, and crossing yourself is an example of one. You cross yourself when when you hear about something bad happening to someone else. It's to protect you. It's to protect you from, you see an ambulance with lights and sirens running, you cross yourself. It's to protect you from the same thing happening. And it's also meant to be an acknowledgement, like the crossing yourself when you pass a church. It's like letting God know that you recognize his church is right there. I don't know. I don't have a good explanation for that one. It's not about protecting yourself from the Catholic Church, but maybe it should be. I don't know. Okay. So and this can lead to all sorts of weird stuff. It's kind of like praying. It's like or like The Secret and things like that. Like that's just, you can't. Unfortunately, we can't change reality with our thoughts, or perhaps fortunately, because if someone down the block wanted things a certain way, what if the guy from Hobby Lobby had the power to alter reality to fix his thoughts? Would we all be chaste, shameful Christians? What would happen? That no, thank you. I like being me. So, yeah, that's disturbing. Okay, and then she goes on with letting go of magical thinking, and this part is incredibly good. I highly recommend it, because it's an important step towards getting just magical thinking out of your life in general. Yeah, because as she points out, magical thinking, is a quote, magical thinking can leave you vulnerable to all sorts of scams and fallacies, like wholeheartedly believing that your mentor stripper has your best interest in mind while she's making a killing dancing for guys in Converse, which was, you'll have to read the book to know what that line was about. And just a great cap to the chapter, quote, living your life according to logic and reason may sound boring and cynical, but it really isn't. The world is plenty interesting, wonderful, and amazing without goofy, magical superstitions. And she's absolutely right about that. And if you haven't had the oh, this is amazing. Sorry, this just makes me happy because the Hobby Lobby in my town once fired a young woman for being late once after they found out that she was actually Jewish. They fired another young lady after they found out that she was pregnant and unmarried. And again, it was for something. And we live in a right to work state, so they couldn't prove it was discriminatory, but it was so obviously discriminatory. Anyway, fun fact, last time my son and I went to a Hobby Lobby, we spelled Satan with all the letters we could find. Thank you, Erin. Just from all of us everywhere who have to deal with overly zealous Christians, thank you for that. And then we get a bit about cold reading and psychics, and this is great. Stone cold reading is one of the subheadings, and we get a few of the common techniques, and this is just kind of well, it's one of those things that certainly stage magicians use, and it's fine. Strippers use cold readings, and it's fine. There are professions. I used to do it as a teacher. I would not, I wouldn't tell students specific things about themselves, but I would look at my class and I would, see how diverse or not it was, that, and I would sort of start tailoring some of the things I was saying, to hit home with as many of the students as possible, right? It helped me do my job better, because a big part of being a teacher is public speaking. So yeah, but then, and I'm so glad that she did. Then Erin describes the very, very bad, awful side of psychics and mediums and people like that, and it's the grief for profit shit, right? And like, it's one thing to just be entertaining someone with stuff, with things like that. That's fine. It's a whole other thing to tell someone that you can communicate with their dead child. That's just no. And I know that, like, way down in the fine print somewhere, with most psychics, it says something to the effect of, this is for entertainment purposes only, but people unfortunately don't believe that. Microraptor asks, is hot reading a thing too? Yes, it is. That's when you look up, or who your client coming in is going to be beforehand, and you look up everything that you can with the internet today. It's depending on how unusual their name is, it's just kind of easy. Also, psychics who do this stuff for a living, that they may even be paying some of those websites that will help you, like, find people, right? So they'll know personal details about their lives. There was if you guys remember that weird ghost show, there was that guy who pretended to be a medium, John Edward. No, is it John Edwards? I don't know. Correct me in the chat, but something Edwards. And he would do, yeah, and there's lukewarm readings too. It's when they're like, M is to the right. This is great. Yeah. Anyway, they'll collect information in advance and then have very specific information. That's a hot reading. I thought hot reading is what I did during a lap dance. I bet it was. I gotta say, this book was fun to read. Okie dokie. Don't get weird, Julie. Don't make it weird. All right. So yeah, there's some. Oh God. Yeah, it's just be wary. This next bit, chapter 15, again, hit me right where I live. Let's see. It's 3:12. Ooh, we've been going for over an hour. Okay, give me a few more minutes. I'll wrap it up. But I was way into ghosts too, because when I was a kid, I had sleep paralysis and thought I saw one, and you could not tell me I didn't. So guys, be nice to Erin. No, she can take it. She's fun. Plus, Mark Caesar's just joking. I think better be. No, that reads like a joke. I'm sorry. I get protective. Okay. So there's this fantastic description of a pretty gross one, actually. And again, I'm not going to give you too much detail because I want you to read it for yourselves. But there we go. There she is. Yeah. Okay. Cool. Just looking out for you. I'm glad. Yep. Never mind. Grown-ass woman who was a stripper for 20 years. You're fine. I realize that. Yeah. Anyway, she uses an example of people seeing ghosts as a way to talk about how memory can be manipulated and details will change and things like that. And it's also why witness testimony is not great in a court of law. It's not considered the hardest of evidence because, like I said, you can have 5 people witness the same event and they'll all notice different things and they'll have 5 different descriptions. Oh gosh. All right. So there we go. I didn't ruin the ghost story for you. Yay. I'm proud of me. And and there's a trip to New Orleans ghost hunting stuff that oh my gosh, I was like, oh, that was me. I did that. What up, haunted history tour? Still learned a lot of cool stories. Because the history parts I was able to verify later. It was the ghost parts that were not verifiable. But learned a lot of cool history about New Orleans. Nope, I'm not going to talk about that part at all because that won't have the effect you want it to have. Yes, and then when you get to when you get to chapter 17, there's some straight up really cool advice in here. Trust me, I'm not a doctor is the title. The subtitle is Outsmart the Alluring Spokesperson. And so here we get two examples of how, again, learning from experience and going, I should have seen that coming, right? But you know, again, the important thing is when you get a life lesson that messes with you, and certainly that messes with your bank account, yeah, just file that away and remember it, you know, so that it's still there later and you don't make the same mistake again. That's the important part. So yeah, there's a bit of an escape from LA situation that happens. There's a pseudo doctor, a certain Dr. Bob that we are not fans of, and Call Me a Stripper, chapter 18, which I think is great. Because here Erin talks about how people will apologize if they say stripper and switch to exotic dancer, like it's this PC thing that has to happen. And it's she's like, I'm a stripper, it's fine. And in fact we do get in another part of the book, we do get kind of the history of stripping as we know it, and it goes back really, really far in our history, like tens of thousands of years. Call me Ishmael, I mean a stripper. All right, let's see. Stripper is fine. Dancing is kind of a lofty word for what I do, and the reason that she says that in the book is that she points out, like, dancers train for decades. Like, they start when they're small, and they train for decades to do what they do. And while I think, you know, I've only been to strip clubs a couple of times, and I was just in awe of I was like, I would break my neck. I would break my neck if I tried to do what she's doing right now. Like, the pole dancing was amazing. And it looked very athletic, and it is. I mean, those ladies are working, but is it dancing, I guess is the question. It's a kind of dance. We could say that, sure. And ding, 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 ding. So, quote, when someone refers to me as an exotic dancer, it is to soothe their discomfort with the topic. So, not using the word for her or for strippers, it's using the term exotic dancer, to make the person feel better because they're nervous, right? Yeah. And I have done similar things with other terms for sure, and it was definitely to hide how nervous I was. So I get it. Now this part I absolutely fucking loved. Okay, so this is right after, this is in the same chapter, and she writes, writing helped legitimize my job in some sense because it is counterintuitive to think that a stripper could also be a writer. By becoming an author, I have been able to show people in a very powerful way that I have accepted myself as a stripper and that what other people think doesn't matter. Now, if I can only bring myself to call myself a stripper all the time, and that leads into something else. But how great is that? This is amazing. And also, yeah, I mean, it's just, yeah. So, yeah. All right. Okay, and then another dirty word. And this is where we get the difference between coming out openly as a stripper and an author and coming out openly as an atheist. A lot of great stuff about the FFRF in here, by the way, the Freedom from Religion Foundation. So, yeah, definitely worth it. Question. You're a stripper. Good for you. You're so brave. I wish I had that kind of confidence. Oh, you're an atheist? Your life has no meaning. How can you have any morals? Aren't you afraid of hell? And I have gotten, not the stripper question, because I've never been a stripper, sadly. But no, it's fine, really. I wouldn't, I'd be, no. I would be the person, I'd be the person asking, saying that. Oh, good for you. You have so much confidence. I don't. But no, it's, oh, you're an atheist. Your life has no meaning. How can you have morals? And aren't you afraid of hell? Yes, all three of those questions have been asked of me by close family members. And I'm like, you know me. Like, you've known me for your whole life. For one of my nieces to somebody else, it was like, you've known me for over 20 years. When have I ever had no morals? It's just suddenly I tell you this thing about me and I have no morals. But okay. So there you go. So yeah. So she talks about that, and it's really good. She talks about her work. She also writes. I keep saying talk. She also writes about her work with the FFRF and its annual convention. There's a phrase skeptical. Wait, is it? No, it's secular. Yeah, secular stripper, which is has a good origin. Again, I don't want to spoil anything for you. And we're getting close to the end of the book now. So, chapter 19, she talks about is about humanism and about the danger of isms in general, and holidays for heathens. Yes, celebrate everything. You're alive. That's another one that really hit home with me because I felt I used to be kind of bitchy about holidays, and now I'm just like, oh no, they're awesome. It's an excuse to have fun and hang out with our friends, and it's great. So, all right, I'm gonna leave it there. other than once again say how happy. Oh, Mary Roach Spook. Oh my gosh. Erin, did you read her book about Stiff, about corpses? That one's great too. I haven't read Spook yet. I've got it somewhere. Anyway, the annotated bibliography at the end of the book made me really happy. Made that nerdy former English teacher in me really happy. But so I think to just sort of bare bones it, kind of wrap it up. It is, yeah, cool. The the main point is, essentially getting to know yourself, taking risks because those can lead to interesting places. Obviously, she's not advocating that you do anything deleterious to your health or anything dangerous in here. I would have let you know. Yeah, I'm sure it did, Microraptor, but I knew it the second I said it. I was like, God damn it. Anyway, but yeah, it's a great book. I found it empowering. I enjoyed the hell out of reading it. It was so much fun to read, and yeah, so. And it's incredibly clever, and just I mean, I literally laugh out loud. I laughed out loud several times, and there was at least one time that made me cry that I'm not going to tell you about but it was, yeah, again, hey, we're human. We have a lot of shared experiences. I did have my red pen out. No, I don't. I didn't take out the red pen. That's why it's nice. I don't have to grade people's writing anymore. I can critique it and I can talk about it, and so. But yeah, only what I choose to. I don't have to get through another paper about how we didn't really land on the moon. You wonder why teachers burn out. There's one reason. All right. Well, that is about it. Yay! And my job here is done. Although, to be clear, Erin, my job was not to kiss your ass. I tried. I tried, and I said something at the beginning of the video about how my biggest criticism is that you can see that this is you're so welcome, honey. You can see that this is a writer, a developing writer. This is better than the first two books, and I am sure that I have no doubt, because this is how writing works, like anything else. The more you do it, the better you get. And so I'm really looking forward to the book you're working on now, because it's going to be amazing. All right. Well, given that, I'm happy that you're happy, and I hope I brought a little bit of joy to your day today. Okay, guys. I got a split. We've been going for almost an hour and a half, and I need some water. This is not hydrating. So please remember, you can't find truth in wine, but you can find it in reason. Get Erin's book, Expose Yourself, by Erin Louis. That's Louis, like St. Louis. Get it. It's awesome. And yes, Mark Caesar, you can get it on Kindle. All right. Bye, y'all.